A full-bodied Patronus is the most difficult to produce. But shield forms can also be equally useful against a variety of opponents. Fantastic, Ginny!
Hey guys, what's up? It's Kate here, and welcome back to the channel. So honestly, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I really just wanted to sit down and kind of chat about my experience meeting Daniel Radcliffe, because honestly, this was something that I have been dreaming about since I was growing up, and I obviously am a huge Harry Potter fan. I love all of his work, and I just think that he is an amazing person. So I wanted to encourage you, if you're thinking of going to see Every Brilliant Thing, that you absolutely should get that ticket, regardless of if you meet him or not. The show is just honestly such an amazing experience, and you walk away with so much. So I kind of wanted to chat about that and just tell you guys a little bit about, you know, how I felt and just honestly how good the show is, because I can't stop gushing about it. So yeah, I'm just going to chat about how I met him. I was sitting down and planning what I wanted to do for my 29th birthday. This, of course, was a year that is very important to me because obviously it's my last year of my 20s. I wanted to do something kind of special and different. I reached out to my mom and we were kind of chatting on the phone, and she wasn't gonna be around. I had texted some of my friends. They also were unfortunately all going to be working. So I was a little bit bummed, but she actually agreed to help me out with getting tickets for the show. I was going back and forth between whether or not I wanted to see Tom Felton in Cursed Child or Daniel Radcliffe. Eventually we kind of came to the conclusion that this was what we were going to do, because honestly I really just kind of resonated with the plot line of what the performance was basically about. Essentially, Daniel is doing a monologue where he is a 7-year-old boy and his mom is kind of going through depression. It basically just talks about how this kid kind of like grows up and overcomes all of the difficulties throughout his life. So I really did kind of resonate with that as someone who also has struggled with depression myself. And it's actually so funny because Harry Potter is one of those things that has always gotten me through a bad day no matter what. Yeah, my mom knew how much it would mean to me if I even got the chance to be close to him. So we got the ticket. I kind of was thinking about if I would actually enjoy the experience because I was going to be all by myself. My friends weren't really going to be around. So I don't know, I just think that the fact that I was by myself actually elevated my experience even more, because I was able to just kind of sit back and take everything in. Day finally arrived and I honestly woke up feeling a little bit off because it was dark, cloudy, and kind of rainy. I was trying to stay optimistic as possible and just come at it with a cozy approach, and I reminded myself that I was going to see obviously one of my childhood heroes, and regardless of if I was by myself or not, I was determined to have a good time. Kind of struggled in the past with like my social anxiety and things like that, so I was just a little apprehensive about how I would feel just like traveling into the city by myself and sitting down at the show by myself. Once I kind of got off the train and I was walking around, I honestly was really uplifted and I just felt so independent. It really was kind of a gratifying like situation for me. So initially I was going to go to a little cafe beforehand and just sit and have a cup of coffee, but when I got off at Grand Central, I realized how much farther away the place actually was from where I thought. I was like, okay, I guess I'll just, you know, take an Uber and go to the theater. I know that I should get there a little bit early, so worst case scenario, I could always, you know, hang out in the lobby, something like that. I pull up to the theater, and right across from the way is this really quaint little like Italian restaurant. I walked up to the host and I said, "Table for one," and I'm so proud of how I approached that, because like a few years ago, I would have never been able to do that. I got a table at the bar and I had a glass of wine. I was just kind of journaling about how grateful I was to have another year of life, and I was just kind of thinking about like what kind of themes I wanted to bring into the next year of my 20s. And I also was just wondering like if I was going to meet him and what that experience might be like, and Of course, I said to myself, I was like, okay, if I don't end up meeting him, honestly, it wouldn't be the worst case scenario. So I finished my dinner and then paid the check and ended up going to the theater. I actually was kind of taken aback by the length of the line, but it did go by really quickly. So I would say that I got there probably around like 7 o'clock or so, if I'm going to be specific. When I walked into the lobby, I loved how they kind of presented everything to you. So basically, he has this list of every brilliant thing or every brilliant reason to live. There were like pieces of blue and yellow paper that were kind of like torn up and hung up on the ceiling. So even as I was waiting amongst all these people that I didn't know, I loved that I was able to just take in the overall feel of what the show was going to be simply by looking up at the ceiling and reading all of these wonderful things. So it just was really uplifting. So the time finally came for the doors to open, and as I kind of went in with the crowd, I realized that there weren't too many people who were there early. I knew that everybody would kind of be trickling in as, you know, time went on and as we got closer to the show start time. Out of the corner of my eye, all of a sudden I see Daniel Radcliffe. I was just so starstruck and taken aback because he just seemed so friendly and approachable, and I was second guessing whether or not it was like theoretically okay for me to just walk up to him and introduce myself. I kind of was chatting with the people next to me and I said, do you think it's like okay if I, you know, say hi to him? And they were like, yeah, like everyone else is, and you should go for it. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. And I'm so proud of myself for, you know, gathering up the courage, and I actually was a little bit more composed than I thought I would be. So I think the first thing I just kind of said was, hi Dan, like my name is Kate, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, I'm so excited for the show. And he was like, oh, thank you so much for being here. That's kind of like my interpretation of his British accent, but yeah, he just really was very enthusiastic and upbeat, and I could immediately feel the energy of that like bouncing off of me. And when this man talks to you, he looks you directly in the eye and he's just so appreciative of you, you know, supporting him, and you can really just tell like how genuine of a person he is. He's just so happy and upbeat. So I did ask for a picture after mentioning that it was my birthday, and unfortunately he wasn't able to take a selfie with me because of course that would lead everyone else to want a photo with him and it probably would just be chaotic. So I absolutely understood, and if that was our only interaction, I would have been totally fine with that. But I was a little bummed that I didn't get my picture. But then I noticed as I went over to my section, he was kind of like observing the audience and searching for people to participate in the show. So if you don't know, the show involves active audience participation. He hands out little cue cards with certain prompts for you to say once he calls them out throughout the show. And all of the prompts were just so funny and hilarious and everyone loves them. So I noticed that he was looking through the audience, and I think I felt like he made eye contact with me, and I couldn't tell if it was in my head or not until I saw him like physically walking in my direction. And I was so happy to make friends with all the people who were sitting next to me. There was this really sweet couple and they were just like, I think he's, you know, walking towards you. I was like, oh my gosh, like that would just be so crazy if he was. And eventually he came up to our section and he was like, oh, like is Kate here? And I was like, yes, that's me. And then we were just kind of chatting casually. I told him about my birthday tradition of watching Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire every year on the eve of my birthday, because there's this one line where I think Hermione says, everything's going to change now, isn't it? I told him that I was so excited. That line happened at exactly 12 o'clock midnight and it was just perfect alignment. And he looked at me and I could tell that he was happy to hear that, but at the same time, I think because of the growth of his career, he probably didn't remember specifically like what that line was. So I just thought that was really funny. Yeah, I basically asked him for a hug and he was like, of course, we can hug. So obviously that was like a pinnacle point of one of the memories that I have of the show. And then I think he kind of forgot that he had already given me a cue card, but he did remember that he did, and he was like, oh, okay, good, so you're okay participating. And I was like, yes, absolutely, anything for you. I think one of the major things that this whole thing has shown me is there actually are great people in this world. So I was so grateful that the couple next to me actually ended up taking pictures during my interaction. They immediately asked me for my phone number, and we exchanged that information, and they sent me the pictures right away. And I just had to tell them, like, thank you so much, because none of my family or friends would believe that this actually happened to me. So yeah, that basically is the whole story of how I met him. I will say about the show itself, there were so many things that I did actually take away about mental health that I kind of wanted to just briefly touch on. And one of those things was the idea that Daniel kind of talks about how in the news today there's just kind of an approach to mental health and depression that really needs to be changed so that it's more positive and encouraging, and I really did actually kind of resonate with that. The other thing that he also encouraged was, if you are somebody who is struggling with something like depression, to seek help wherever you can and reach out to your support system. I personally can be proof that therapy does work and it does improve you so much. So I really loved that. And yeah, you can just kind of take away that, you know, theater is an art form, and I never would have thought about all the people who just kind of like walk about the streets in the day-to-day that really should be Broadway performers, because some of these girls who kind of like went up on stage and did like monologues, they were so talented and you could just tell that they were meant to be there. And then there were also like other people who just, you know, they were okay participating, but you could just tell that it wasn't really their thing. So I just thought it was so funny, and just the humor that human beings have overall is just something that I did notice. And yeah, that essentially was my time at the show. I really hope that you guys got something out of this and it encouraged you to go see it, because you absolutely should. That's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!